An already difficult diplomatic path towards ending the war in Gaza appears to be on further shaky ground after Israel targeted the Hamas negotiating team in Qatar. Meanwhile, Israel is ramping up its attacks on Gaza City. The Palestinian Hamas-run health ministry says at least 41 people were killed over the past day. Israel last month vowed to fully occupy Gaza City. Meanwhile, the families of Israeli hostages are following the developments with concern and anxiety. The Israeli government says 47 hostages are still in Gaza. 20 are believed to still be alive. Earlier, CNN spoke with Moshe Lavi. His brother-in-law, Omri Miran, is being held as a hostage in Gaza.
I understand why the Israeli leadership, our leadership, would want to pursue and eliminate Hamas leadership. They are responsible for the suffering of both Israelis and Palestinians. The onus is on them, and they have not negotiated in good faith. However, conducting such strikes in the midst of negotiations, a day after President Trump outlined a new vision for a deal, a few weeks after Hamas stated that they're supposedly agreeing to the Witkoff plan that Israel agreed to before. It's unclear what's the point of this strike and what is going to progress us to a hostage deal.
Time now for the exchange. Joining me is Israeli journalist Amit Siegel. He is the chief political commentator for Israel's Channel 12 News and also the author of the newsletter, It's Noon in Israel. Amit, it's great to have you on. Few in Israel are as well sourced with the government operations as you are there. So let's talk about what transpired the other day and the significance there. You're reporting that Jerusalem is skeptical that these strikes actually succeed. What in targeting and taking out Hamas leadership? What is the latest that you know, and were these top leaders able to escape?
So the story is no less than amazing because people were under the impression that maybe the American phone call for the Qatari administration led to some sort of tipping the Hamas leadership, thus letting them escape. But the story appears to be even more dramatic than this. The Hamas leadership had a conversation in a negotiation room, and then they moved to pray in another room. So they left their cell phones. This is a report that I think is quite credible. So they left the phones in the original room, and this is the room that was bombed by the Israeli Air Force from a distance. That's why they survived, although the IDF was under the impression that no one could have survived such bombing because they were just not in the specific room. They were not with their phones. So Israel is quite skeptical as we speak, although the body damage assessment has not been completed yet.
Wow, that is quite a narrative if in fact they survived this targeted killing by praying at the same time, but Israel instead was following their cell phones. If these leaders survived, what, if anything, does that change behind Israel's quite drastic and extraordinary calculus here by doing something they've never done before and targeting Hamas officials in Qatar?
Right. So first of all, this is the scenario Israel took. A path Israel took after the 1972 massacre in Munich. The 11 Israeli sportsmen, Olympic sportsmen, were killed by the PLO. So, and Israel tracked and killed each and every one of the terrorists. This is the case now. The new thing is about attacking in Qatar, just a few miles from the American biggest airbase in the Middle East. So, first of all, the idea was to take the staunchest part of the Hamas leadership, those that opposed or have opposed the new Trump deal to end the war and release all the hostages, thus paving the way for a more so-called moderate leadership in Hamas, if it exists. This is the same pattern that we have seen in Lebanon a year ago. Israel assassinated Nasrallah and the entire leadership, thus leading to a ceasefire with the new leadership of Hezbollah. So I think that had the leadership killed, it would have facilitated negotiations on the New Deal. However, I still think, Diana, that the really dramatic event here is is the crime scene, Qatar. While attacking in Doha, Israel signals the end of the Qatari role in negotiating a deal. Now, here's the thing. In Israel, there are two streams. One says that Qatar is a pro-terrorist state that actually funded each and every rifle, each and every RPG missile that targeted and killed Israeli citizens and soldiers. And the other branch in Israel, aka Mossad, claims that Qatar is a partner in order to negotiate a hostage deal. So yesterday, it's not a coincidence that the Mossad was not mentioned in the Prime Minister's announcement, because the Mossad opposed this attack. Actually, the Mossad promised Qatar that Hamas leadership would not be assassinated by Israel on a Qatari soil. So we can say that this is one of the first assassinations in which Mossad was not involved, and the outcomes would be quite dramatic regarding the Gaza Strip and the hostages.
So once again, highlighting some internal divisions among security leadership within the Israeli government, not necessarily going after Hamas leadership, but the timing of it right now. As you heard, so many hostage families now wonder where this leaves ceasefire hostage talks. But I think that the bigger question, or just as big of a question, Amit, is what does this say about U.S.-Israel and being in alliance here with the decision to target Qatar, which was always seen as a red line, taboo, to go after Qatar given its relationship with the United States. You know, publicly, the White House, the president has expressed his frustration, saying he wasn't aware of this. Prime Minister Netanyahu also came out publicly and said Israel acted alone. Tell us what you're hearing the actual story was. Did the United States know ahead of time?
I would be very surprised if Israel hadn't informed President Trump in advance, and more than informed, got his sort of green light. I don't think the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu is of the nature of the Netanyahu-Biden relationship, in which Israel informed about the assassination of Nasrallah, for instance, or the pager attack only minutes before it happened. We still remember that in this one single time in which President Trump opposed an Israeli military operation, it stopped the jet fighters on their way to Tehran on June 25th this year. So again, I think the negotiations between Israel and the U.S. included an Israeli responsibility to the attack, an American attempt to actually distance the U.S. administration from this attack, hoping that the Hamas leadership would be eliminated. I don't think that President Trump really opposed this attack. And by the way, if you read between the lines of the Trump declaration, he didn't really say that. He said that he is sorry for this, but he said that the Hamas leadership should be eliminated. So it was something with mixed feelings. The mixed feelings, if Hamas leadership was assassinated, was, I don't know, joy and excitement. But unfortunately, they didn't die.
That's right, because we did hear the president, when he was adamantly opposed to actions that Israel was taking militarily, he said so in front of the cameras and used some expletives as well. But we also know that the president supports winners, quote unquote. So if this is viewed as an unsuccessful operation, it will be interesting to see how the president responds ultimately. Amit Segal, thank you so much. Really interesting details you're providing there. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bianna.
And one more note from the region. 3 Israeli Nobel Prize winners have written a letter to Donald Trump saying the moment presents a historic opportunity. They are vowing to support his bid to win a Nobel Peace Prize if he brings an end to the Israel-Hamas war and brokers a return of the hostages being held in Gaza. The 3 winners signed the letter with other scientists and families of the hostages.